What's up everyone, Thralls here once again. I'm Necrotic, and I have another collection update for you. This one has a lot of different stuff in here. I kind of went on a classic metal splurge, I guess. And I'm not going to really go into those as much because these are releases definitely everyone knows about. But I do have some cool, weird underground stuff here. And, well, I'm just going to get into it. Dance with the Dead, Loved to Death. This really isn't metal, this is more aggressive synthwave stuff, but I really dig it. We have pretty much just a love of all things 80s synthwave and John Carpenter movie scores and stuff here, but definitely with a metal attitude. Like the synths are actually used kind of like guitars in terms of like, you know, how aggressive and chuggy they sound. And you do have some guitars in here. You even have some appearances from, I believe, Nick Hippa from As I Lay Dying, who, despite I'm not a big fan of the band anymore, the dude's a solid guitarist and contributes some really cool melodic leads. Now, I guess one of the members in this band, Justin Pointer, actually was in a death metal band at one point called Crepitus or something to that effect. So I think there's definitely some of that influence in there just in terms of making this a heavier project. And I gotta say, this is really good. I definitely want to get more of their stuff because this was a lot of fun to listen to. It's kind of a nice break from just all the pummeling death metal and such that I listen to. And I grew up in the 80s, so synth is kind of always a part of me. So yeah, definitely check it out. It was a lot of fun to listen to. Serpent Omega II is their second album. This comes out on Icons Creating Evil Art and has support from the Swedish Arts Council, which is really cool that they have someone that supports them and putting out record labels that's not a label. Or maybe it is. I don't know. Either way, this is a Swedish sludge doom band. It features drummer Peter Stjarnvind. I'm probably butchering your last name, I'm sorry. This guy has actually drummed for a number of bands including Entombed, Niflheim, and Regurgitate, so he's definitely been around the block, and his wife is the frontwoman on this. And this is just really atmospheric, dissonant, sludgy doom metal. Has some blackened spots, and I was kind of surprised that a good chunk of this is harsher vocals, but they sound really forced. Her strong suit is definitely the melodic vocals. I think the melodic vocals have some really cool, catchy parts to it. And these songs are very long and drawn out and all about just kind of laboring that doomy atmosphere, and they do a really good job there. Sometimes it gets a little long and it kind of wears on you a bit, but I mean, you know, that's just kind of the style. Like they just want longer, meatier songs. But overall, pretty solid offering. I definitely want to check out the first one. I could definitely use some new doom bands or sludge bands or blackened doom sludge bands. It's pretty much what all this is. Either way, definitely check it out. This was a fun listen. Entropy, Forced Convergence. This is one of the ones I got in the Metalhead box, and this is a self-released album from this band that's been around since 1989 and I've never heard of. Apparently they kind of broke up a while ago. They only have 4 albums counting this one, and I guess they just recently got back together because this came out this year, and this is very just heavy speed metal slash thrash metal. I absolutely love how heavy and chunky the guitars are. It really has like a feel of like Death Angel or Anthrax, like especially the earlier stuff with Joey Belladonna for sure. The vocals are definitely a little bit cleaner. I would say like they get a little harsh, like kind of like Heathen a bit, but this guy really loves to do a really high-pitched wail, and honestly it sounds kind of forced at this point, and it just really doesn't fit with the music. Like overall, his regular register is fantastic. I think he's got a great voice, but the over-the-top, like high-pitched Tamarea yell is just a bit much. But I love this. Like the riffs are all over the place. Occasionally you get some death metal riffs on here. There's some blast beats. Heavy, chunky production. I really enjoyed this. Definitely check this one out, especially if you got it in the Metalhead box. If you didn't, go find it, because this is really, really good. Hexenklad, Spirit of the Stone. This came out in 2017. This was the other one I got in the Metalhead box. And this is some pagan, folk, black metal, and occasionally kind of melodic death-ish. I really wasn't a huge fan of this, unfortunately. Like, I'm kind of picky when it comes down to the pagan metal stuff, but I was kind of hoping I'd find some cool stuff in here, and there are some cool moments on here. The mix is really rough. Like, I think the drums sound very loud, and all the symphonic slash pagan elements in here are also very loud. There is a chorus on here that completely turned me up. I believe it was the song At Dusk, where it just sounds like everyone trying to sing the chorus at the same time, but like almost kind of drunkenly, and it doesn't necessarily fit. And as much as a lot of this will have that cool epic feel, it just feels really, really cluttered. I don't like the tone of the lead guitar. Like, it sounds very squawky. It doesn't really, you know, have that epic quality to it that I figure they would be trying to deliver on like these big leads. But I mean, you know, it's their first album, probably still working out some kinks in terms of the sound. Still, I definitely recommend checking it out. I may not be into it, but you might dig it, so definitely check it out. Enforsaken, Embraced by Misery EP. Now, I brought up Enforsaken in an underrated albums for melodic death metal. These guys were from Chicago, and they put out an absolute banger in 2004 called Forever Endeavor. I strongly recommend checking that one out. This is the EP that preceded it. This came out in 2001 on Lifeless Records, and pretty much the same spirit as the debut, except the recording is definitely muddier. The clean vocals aren't as good on this. In fact, they kind of sound really just kind of thrown in there. Not particularly tuneful, but this pretty much has all the hallmarks of melodic death metal. You have the at the gates riffs left and right, and there's a lot of good melodic hooks on it. It's just most of the song structure is a little bit knee-jerk sometimes. Like, they definitely got better at that over the course of the time that they got to their debut album. But this has some of the early workings of a couple of the tracks on there. I believe the acting parts and Dead Light, Dead Night, those two actually made it on Forever Endeavor, and they're definitely strong songs. You can hear the original versions on here, and they tweaked them just a little bit. But overall, there's some really good songs in here. I liked Into the Everblack. It has a nice, mid-tempo kind of Amon Amarth-like groove. But despite the money production and such, this was still a pretty solid listen, so definitely check it out, especially if you love melodic death metal, because that's exactly what this is. So check it out. Demigod, Slumber for Sullen Eyes. Now, this originally came out in 1992. This is the 2006 reissue on Extreme Music, and this includes their original EP, Unholy Domain, and oh my god, this is awesome. This is just amazing, old school Finnish death metal, just chuggy, nasty, lots of really cool drumming on here, lots of cool like off-time stuff, scorching lead work. It almost kind of has like a feel of some Florida death metal. Like, I was surprised it's not particularly like death doomy. It's a lot of stuff that reminds me of like, Morbid Angel, Monstrosity, all that fun stuff. Love the songwriting, and I have to say, dude, the demo is absolutely banging too. Like, it is extra gritty, and I love how just nasty it sounds. Actually, I would say it's even heavier than the full length. Either way, definitely check out this band, check out all their stuff. I'm going to slowly start collecting all their stuff, once I can find it for decent prices. But this was an absolutely fantastic listen, and if you love old school 90s death metal, just get it, because it's awesome. Check it out. Blue Oyster Cult, Tyranny and Mutation. This is their second album, came out in 1973, and yep, we're getting into the more classic stuff now. I love Blue Oyster Cult. I pretty much love most of the stuff they did, especially their earlier years. The 70s stuff was really wild. I do really love Fire of Unknown Origin. That's possibly my favorite. Just in case we're doing a ranking, I'm not going to commit to that. But awesome album. Has a lot of my favorite songs here. The Red and the Black, Hot Rails to Hell. I absolutely love the song Mistress of the Salmon Salt, Quick Lime Girl. Not really sure what that's all about in terms of the song titles. I always liked the fact that these guys had like very catchy, just kind of heavy rock songs, but they were very poppy. But when you get down to the lyrics were usually like weird sci-fi stuff, or like oddball stories, or even kind of like some dark, weird stuff. And I always like that contrast. Blue Oyster Cult rules. Definitely check them out. I really don't have to say much about them, just because most metalheads know Blue Oyster Cult. And if you don't, you should, because this is one of those bands that definitely helped metal become a thing. So check them out. Alright, this is going to kick off a block of Judas Priest stuff. So we have Sad Wings of Destiny. I decided I've been relying too much on my Metalworks Greatest Hits thing. Granted, that's an awesome Greatest Hits. It's like 3 discs. It's just loaded with everything awesome from Judas Priest. But I needed to actually get some of the full lengths just to round out my collection. And got Sad Wings of Destiny and some other ones which I'm going to go into. But awesome album. Victim of Changes, one of my favorite songs. Genocide is an absolute banger. Definitely, this was where they started finding their sound, and, well, I mean, no one's heard of Judas Priest, right? So, yeah. instantly forgotten. Yeah, awesome album. Strongly recommend it. If you already haven't heard it, it's Judas Priest again. Hard to escape them. Check that one out. And then we also picked up Stay in Class. And this is easily up there with my favorites from Judas Priest. Exciter, who the hell doesn't love that song? I pretty much love every track in here, especially Savage, Beyond the Realms of Death. Absolutely gorgeous song. Anyway, enough about this one. Most people know this one. If you don't, definitely check it out. Of course, links to all the music in the video description, but I mean, these are classics, which is why I'm not going into them very much, just letting you know that I have them. So check this out. Arguably classic, Judas Priest, Ram It Down. This one, they're pretty much in full 80s mode. This came out in 1988, and the drums sound like every 80s drum ever, like that big, lush, almost drum machine sound. It's an okay album. There's some really cheesy stuff. Like, I don't like the cover of Johnny Be Good. I really wish they hadn't done that. But, I mean, the title track's awesome. Heavy Metal's a really good song. Monsters of Rock is kind of cool and anthemic, but there's a lot of meh on here. But still, it's Judas Priest. I love them. So, you know, got to round out the collection. So, eventually you're going to see more Judas Priest pop up here just because I'm eventually just going to get all the albums just because it's Judas Priest. So, yeah, check it out. Another unknown, Ozzy Osbourne, Bark of the Moon. Another one that I'm rounding out, and actually I believe I have rounded it out with the ones I picked up. So, Bark of the Moon, absolutely awesome. Jake E. Lee's first album, ripping solos, just absolutely killer songs on here. I absolutely love Spiders, of course, but you know, the title track, everyone knows that track. It's absolutely awesome. Definitely check it out if you've never heard it, which if you haven't, so many questions about whoever I'm talking to right now. But yeah, Ozzy Osbourne, classic. More Ozzy Osbourne, Ultimate Sin. Definitely a change, you know, came out in 86, a little bit more melodic, more synths and such. You know, had to try different things. I love the title track. Shot in the Dark is unbelievably catchy. I've always had a thing for that song. But it's a different kind of album, and I think it's one of his best album covers. I love this album cover. But yeah, not going to go too much into this because everyone knows this. And everyone's going to know the next one too. So I'm just going to tell you to check this out if you haven't, because it's Ozzy. Check it out. And like I said, the next one, also Ozzy. And it's No More Tears. And I distinctly remember MTV being loaded with that video. And of course, Mama, I'm Coming Home. I Don't Want to Change the World. There's some writing credits on here from Lemmy, which he probably made more money on than he did with Motorhead, which is sad. But still cool that he actually got the money for it. Pretty solid album. Supposed to be his last one. Of course, you know, Ozzy, there's just really no quitting him. So, of course, there was more after this. But yeah, another solid album from him. I pretty much love most of Ozzy's stuff. There's definitely some stinkers in there, but I still do like this album. And again, if you haven't checked this out, definitely check it out. It's Ozzy Osbourne. There's a good chance you've already heard this and all the other Ozzy albums. But if you haven't, check it out. It's a good time. Anthrax, Persistence of Time. Another one that's more of a classic, but this is the 30th anniversary edition of it, and generally I don't buy albums that I already have just because I don't really pursue extra editions of stuff. But this one I had to because this was the first Anthrax album I ever bought, and this is what got me into them. I brought them up in my what got me into metal in my teens, and when I saw this came out, and it has pretty much the pre-production Scott guided vocals for some of the songs in here. But the really cool thing on here is the DVD, which is like pretty much behind the scenes of that era of the band. It opens up with Scott recording their burned down practice space, which that was pretty much how their year started in 1990. All their stuff went up in a blaze, and they're pretty much just lamenting over what happened. And then you got the recording sessions and everything, and you know, just listening to them go through the raw versions of the songs and hearing them do all the stuff in the studio was really cool. But then they also have footage they did with their tour with Iron Maiden when they were doing their tour, and just kind of goof around on stage, closing the night by doing cover songs with Iron Maiden on stage, and seeing Charlie getting a kit and let Nico take a break and just watching them just wail through some songs. This album is always going to be very meaningful to me. It might not be my favorite Anthrax album, but yeah, we'll get into that at some point when we rank them. It might be, I don't know. It's close. But I will always have a soft spot for this album, and that's why I bought it again, because this was like, you know, that beginning of me getting into thrash metal. So yeah, amazing album. Definitely check it out. Check out this version too. Like, get this version. It's really cool. But if not, just get a version. It's killer stuff. All right, getting back to some newer stuff. Foretoken Ruin. This is this band's debut album. It came out this year on Prosthetic Records, and this is a two-man symphonic melodic death metal project, or melodic death metal, melodic black metal. It's kind of all that wrapped up. It's a wild listen. Like, generally when I think of symphonic bands, I'm not super like into that, because sometimes it just becomes like too much layering and it just doesn't sound natural. These guys go for a more technical melodic death metal style. Like, the guitars are still very, very much like the focus on here. The vocals pretty much stay in that kind of like higher scream. And I gotta say, like, the style of this is more like Flesh God Apocalypse, but mix that with Dark Tranquility. Really solid writing on here. And as cheesy as most symphonic bands sound, at least to me, this didn't come across as cheesy. This comes across as like dark opuses. And there's a couple of tracks in here that I believe break the 10-minute mark, and they did not get boring at all. Like, I was super into this. It's kind of like a less crazy, more symphonic version of an All Nathrak, but then again, I don't think anything's like an All Nathrak. But this was really good, and I will definitely come back to this one quite a bit, because this was just a fun listen. Definitely check this one out. Chemis, Doomed Heavy Metal EP. This is pretty much 3 live tracks, 1 new track, and 2 covers. Now, one cover, Rainbow in the Dark, they actually did a really awesome job on it. It's very different too. Like, they just doomed it up, and they kind of just, you know, made it sound sludgier and more depressive. It doesn't sound like, you know, the big, you know, happier anthem that Rainbow in the Dark is, in terms of just like, you know, the call to arms. This is more like lamenting, but it's really good. The cover that caught me off guard, though, was the cover of A Conversation with Death, which is pretty much old American folk. I can't remember the name of the guy that originally wrote it, but you can hear his works in Oh Brother Where Art Thou, which really cool fucking movie. But they took an old American folk song and turned it into the most somber doom song with excellent vocal harmonies. And I love the vocals on Khemmis albums. I think that guy has just this great delivery, tuneful, but he keeps that somber, kind of drudgy feeling throughout. And then Empty Throne's the only original track in here, which is awesome. It's pretty much Khemmis. If you love Khemmis' style, you'll love that track. And then the 3 live tracks are solid. I mean, it's just pretty much stuff from, I believe, at least their first 3 albums. At least they picked like 3 tracks, I think. Either way, this came out on $20 spin this year, and this is a really solid teaser in terms of, you know, stuff they're working on and such. And I really, really love that cover of A Conversation with Death. I think that is just a really cool approach on that. Definitely check this out. I absolutely love Khemmis, and I am eager to hear another full length from him, but this will do for now. Check it out. And finally, we have Mastodon, Medium Rarities. This is their Rarities collection they just put out, and this pretty much is just a collection of instrumental versions of tracks. There's 1 new track, Fallen Torches, which is really good and surprisingly heavy considering the direction of the last couple of albums, and, well, the comments that, you know, Brent Hines has made about, you know, not liking metal and all that stuff. It's a really chuggy song. I would say the back half of it is just nasty in terms of that song. Now, you get a couple of covers in here, which A Commotion, originally done by Feist. I'm not familiar with Feist, but they definitely made it into a heavy, sludgy song. And then A Spoonful Weighs a Ton, originally done by the Flaming Lips, which I've never really jammed the Flaming Lips. It's just never been something I've been super interested in, but they do a really good job. And then we have tons of live tracks, and then stuff that was on just soundtracks and such. Like the song Atlanta, which has Gabby Hayes from Butthole Surfers on there. That was on like an Adult Swim compilation, which I had that downloaded for a while. And then you have White Walker, which they contributed to Game of Thrones, and Cut You With a Linoleum Knife, which I actually own the Aqua Teen Hunger Force soundtrack for the movie. And I love that song. It's one of my favorite ones that I don't think they will ever play live, just because Braun said that hurt his vocals for the most part. But it's a fun, goofy song. And their cover of Orion, which I believe was on like a Metal Hammer sampler, pretty solid collection of stuff. I'm, you know, eagerly waiting to hear what they do next. Fallen Torches might be what the next one sounds like. It might just be one that was a cast off from the last album. I don't know. It's there though. And it gives me hope at least they're going to write something new and come out with a new album soon, because I definitely want to hear it. So yeah, definitely check this out. There's a lot of cool stuff on here, and if you didn't collect all the soundtracks and such, like I did, or download a bunch of random tracks, definitely check it out. It's got a lot of cool extras. Alright, well, that will do it for this collection update. Obviously, by the time you see this, we have closed the polls for the next album rankings, and it will be Testament, Suffocation, Dark Throne, and for Halloween, because it's appropriate, we are going to do Typo Negative, because I think just about all of us love Typo Negative here. And they're appropriately Halloween-ish, whatever you want to call it. They're awesome, and we definitely want to do something fun for Halloween that's kind of a theme thing. So, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. Catch you later.